Have you ever really stopped to think about what happens under the hood when you search for something in a huge database? What's actually going on in that split second? Well, to get to the bottom of it, we're going to frame this as a little chat between a user with a very common problem and an expert system with all the answers. Let's kick things off with the user's first big question. And that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It doesn't matter if you're wrangling customer records, scientific data, or even just your own massive photo collection. The bigger it gets, the slower it feels. It's a frustration we've all felt. So what's the expert's take on why this happens? I just love this analogy because we all have that drawer, right? It perfectly nails the problem. The real issue isn't how much data you have, it's the complete and utter disorder. When everything is just thrown in there randomly, your system has no choice but to literally pick up and look at every single item, one by one, until it stumbles upon what you're looking for. It has no map, no strategy, just pure brute force. So here's the bottom line. Sorting is the absolute first most critical step. And it's not just about making things feel faster for us. A lot of the most powerful algorithms that do the heavy lifting with our data for things like scheduling and complex transformations, they just flat out will not work right unless that data is in a predictable order to begin with. Sorting is really the foundation everything else is built on. That is a fantastic follow-up. Okay, so if sorting is the answer, what's the best way to actually do it? It sounds simple on the surface, but like pretty much everything in computing, there's more than one way to tackle it, and the difference between them is absolutely massive. You can basically break sorting methods into two big categories. On one side, you've got what we call naive sorts, like bubble sort. They're pretty easy to wrap your head around, but they are incredibly slow for any decent-sized data set. On the other side, you have the heavy hitters, efficient sorts like Mergesort and Quicksort. Yeah, they're a little more complex to understand, but the performance boost you get is just astronomical. Now take a look at that complexity column, because this is where it gets really interesting. O of n squared means that as your data grows, the time it takes to sort it grows exponentially. That's what we call quadratic complexity, and it's the kind of thing that can make an algorithm run for hours or even days. Now compare that to O of n log n, which scales so much better. This is exactly why picking the right sorting algorithm isn't just a suggestion, it's a must for any serious application. Perfect. So we've done the hard work, we've organized our messy drawer, but what does that actually get us? The next logical question is, how do we take advantage of all this beautiful order to find what we need in a flash? This is where we get to use the classic divide and conquer strategy. Think about looking up a word in a physical dictionary. You don't start at A and flip every page, right? No, you open it right to the middle, you see if your word comes before or after that page, and bam, you've just eliminated half the book in one move. A binary search tree does precisely that with your data, chopping the search area in half over and over again until it zeroes in on your item. It's a huge leap forward. And it's not the only tree structure out there. You also have things like heaps, which are great for a different job, like instantly finding the biggest or smallest item in a set, which is super important for stuff like priority queues. Now that's the question, isn't it? Our user is thinking big now. We went from painfully slow to pretty darn fast. But is it possible to go from fast to, well, instant? Can we just break the sound barrier entirely? The expert system, believe it or not, has an answer. And this right here is a total game changer. We're about to shift our thinking completely. Forget about searching for data. What if we could just calculate its exact location before we even start looking? That is the incredible idea behind a technique called hashing. So how in the world does that work? Well, every piece of your data gets a unique key. Think of a username or a product ID. You take that key and you feed it into a special math formula called a hash function. That function then spits out a number, and that number is the direct address, the exact index of your data inside a storage bucket called a hash table. There's no searching involved at all. Let's just walk through it real quick. You give it a key, maybe jsmith123. The hash function does its magic and turns that into, say, the number 42. Your computer then goes directly to slot number 42 in its memory, and boom, there's your data, waiting for you. It's unbelievably direct. And this right here is the holy grail. It's called O1, or constant time. That 1 literally means it takes just one step to find your data. Let that sink in for a second. Not one step per 100 items or one step per million. One single step. It makes no difference if your database has 100 entries or 100 billion. The time it takes to find something is always the same. The size of the dataset becomes totally irrelevant. You just can't get any faster than this. Exactly what you're probably thinking right now. O1 sounds like a magic trick, and we all know there's no such thing as a free lunch in computing. If this is so perfect, why isn't it used for absolutely everything? Well, there is a catch, and it's a pretty big one. So here's the problem. What happens if that hash function takes two different keys, like jsmith123 and pberry456, and by pure chance, it spits out the exact same index number for both of them? That's called a hash collision, and if you're not ready for it, when you go to save the second person's data, it'll just overwrite the first person's, and poof, you've lost data. So how do we deal with this? Well, there are a few key strategies. First, you just make your hash table big enough so there's plenty of empty space, which lowers the odds of a collision. Second, you design a really smart hash function that does a great job of spreading the keys out evenly. And third, you plan for collisions with a clever trick called chaining. This just means that each slot in your table isn't just one spot, it's the start of a little list. So if two keys happen to land on the same address, say slot 42, you just add the second one to the list that's already there. It slows things down just a tiny bit, but it guarantees you never lose any data. So we've gone on quite a journey, haven't we? From the complete chaos of a junk drawer to the almost magical speed of hashing, with all its little quirks. It really shows you that in computing, there's almost always a trade-off between the theoretically perfect solution and a practical one that's good enough for the real world. Which brings us to a final big question. When you're dealing with massive scale and complexity, how do you decide when to chase perfection and when to embrace a clever shortcut that just gets the job done? And that's all the time we have for today. If this peek behind the curtain of sorting and searching helped make sense of things, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like, share, and subscribe for more. We'll see you next time for another deep dive. Thanks for watching.